Today we're breaking down a critical Senate hearing on one of the most pressing security challenges of our time, the collapse of nuclear arms control. With the New START treaty set to expire and no replacement in sight, we're entering uncharted territory. Three nuclear superpowers, the United States, Russia, and China, now operate without binding limits on their arsenals. What does this mean for global security? And are America's allies considering their own nuclear options? Let's dive into this consequential testimony.
There are none on Russia and the United States once the New START treaty goes out of force.
So are we not in an environment of nuclear proliferation?
Senator, we are in an environment of potential buildup to more deployed nuclear weapons in two nuclear weapon states, the United States and Russia, and also then in China. So the question then is, will there be additional proliferation to other countries encouraged at this moment to build their own nuclear weapons program? So that's a serious question.
You know, you were asked that question, and I think you responded, and I'd like Admiral Richard to respond to what is South Korea and Japan seeing this uncertainty created by the end of this major treaty, not perfect, but where do you think their views are going to be in terms of their own protection?
Senator, first, I know of no non-nuclear states, allied or not, who have recently announced plans to acquire nuclear weapons. You asked if we are, so I don't know of any proliferation that is actually occurring. I certainly think, particularly our Asia-Pacific allies, are certainly re-examining their own defense needs to include the possibility of them acquiring their own nuclear weapons. We certainly have long-standing history and have had successful extended deterrence commitments to both of those, and there are still options available to us to continue to maintain those.
Well, when I talk about nuclear...
Here's the dilemma facing U.S. policymakers. Admiral Richard confirms that while South Korea and Japan haven't announced nuclear weapons programs, they are re-examining their defense needs. This is diplomatic language for a profound shift. For decades, America's nuclear umbrella, the promise to defend allies with its own arsenal, has prevented proliferation in Asia. But if allies lose confidence in U.S. extended deterrence, the entire non-proliferation framework could unravel. The question being debated here isn't just about treaties between superpowers, it's about whether America can still convince its allies they don't need their own nukes. Now watch as the discussion turns to a thorny diplomatic challenge. Should the U.S. negotiate with Russia and China separately or together? And what happens when Russia demands that Britain and France join the talks too? Think about this. How do you negotiate arms control when each party wants different players at the table?
And the Admiral have any further points on that?
Senator, I'll just offer that I don't know how China could be moving much faster independent of treaties that we do or don't have on ourselves. Russia seems to be very capable of going around the New START treaty to add capabilities that are capabilities and capacity that are not constrained by the treaty. I would certainly encourage arms control negotiations between the U.S., Russia, and China effort to put some limits on that.
If I may very briefly, Senator, I would just say as a negotiator, I like to keep things simple and straightforward. I believe that we must negotiate with the Chinese. We must negotiate with the Russians. I would do it in parallel. I'll tell you one reason is that the Russians just this morning said very clearly, as they have repeatedly, if you insist on a trilateral negotiations, we want UK and France at the table as well, the P5, all of the nuclear weapon states under the NPT. That is a very complex negotiation, and I think that we can make progress with Russia and with China on parallel tracks.
Thank you. For one last question for Admiral Richards, you were in charge of the command that you had to certify our modernization efforts, et cetera, without having to actually do kinetic testing. Do you think that we need to actually do kinetic testing of our nuclear weapons in order to to confirm that they are ready to go, if that's a way of putting it?
Senator, I stand by my certification of the nuclear weapons complex under my command as not requiring explosive testing. However, at the same time, I also, in every one of those certifications, noted that we need to have test readiness improved from what it currently is, should conditions develop requiring us to consider testing. And those are not just technical, they could be political. And so, yes, I saw nothing during my time on active duty that caused me to doubt the safety, security, and surety of our nuclear weapons complex under the current testing regime. But I also saw a future where we needed to have test readiness in case those conditions change.
One more question in that regard, Mr. Chairman. Who would authorize such kinetic testing?
That's ultimately a presidential decision, if I understand it correctly.
Thank you.
What sort of changes might necessitate that, Admiral?
Senator, first, and we had some background discussion in terms of the number of tests that we have done in the past, which forms a pedigree for us to continue the stockpile stewardship program. But as our weapons age and go beyond their design lifetimes, there are a number of effects, aging effects, that you may bump into the limits of your science to understand and predict where they're going to go. So there are both technical reasons and I alluded to political reasons, actions by your opponents, both of which may make
This hearing reveals the precarious state of nuclear arms control in 2025. We're facing a triple challenge: no treaty limits between the world's three largest nuclear powers, allies questioning America's protective commitments, and aging U.S. weapons that may eventually require testing to verify, a move that could trigger a new global arms race. The witnesses recommend parallel negotiations with Russia and China, keeping diplomacy alive even as both adversaries expand their arsenals. Admiral Richard's testimony about test readiness is particularly significant. While current weapons don't require explosive testing, that could change due to technical aging or political pressure from rivals. The unspoken question throughout this hearing: can diplomacy prevent a new nuclear arms race, or are we already in one? What's your take? Should the U.S. pursue simultaneous negotiations with Russia and China, or focus on one at a time? And do you think America's allies will eventually pursue their own nuclear programs? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this breakdown valuable, hit that like button and subscribe for more in-depth analysis on the critical national security issues shaping our world. Thanks for watching.